Okay, good morning, class. Today I'm going to be covering your syllabus. Welcome back. And so I have, if you all go into Blackboard and you access your syllabus, you can go with me and read through it. This is CRTR 2401, Fall 2017, El Paso Community College Syllabus, Part 1. Instructors course requirements for fall of 2017, CRTR 2401, Intermediate Machine Shorthand, Distance Learning Online. There are no in-person class dates. I'm Lucretia Thomas, Certified Shorthand Reporter, Registered Professional Reporter, and Certified Reporting Instructor. I'm located here at the Northwest Campus, room M84, if you all need anything. My office number is 831-8834. All messages are returned as promptly as possible. Please leave your name and a detailed message, okay? The preferred form of correspondence is through email, and it's lucretiat@epcc.edu, okay? This is the best way to communicate with me. Make sure you include your course name in the subject line of the email, and I do check them throughout the semester. Remember, I am recording in the mornings live, so you might not reach me in the mornings, but I'll try and check them first thing when I get here, okay? But from 9 to 1, I'm not available. All official announcements and communication regarding your course will be made by email and or Blackboard announcements. So make sure that you check your announcements in Blackboard, and I will send off an email as well. I check it off, so if they have your right email, you'll get it in there. But everything, all announcements are made in Blackboard, so very important that you all check them, okay? Zoom office hours are done through the computer the way I am right now. The office hours are from 1 to 2 Mountain Standard Time, Monday through Thursday, Fridays by appointment. And you use my cell number is the same ID number for the Zoom, and it's 915-274-2521. Okay, let me see. So let's go on to the description of course. We have continuous development of conflict-free machine shorthand skills through readback of dictation notes, machine practice, and transcription. To exit this course, students must write on a stenographic machine and pass at a minimum speed of 120 words a minute with 100 word per minute with 97% accuracy on 2 5-minute time writings each on Q&A. So you have to pass 2 each, 120, 100. And you have to pass 2 5-minute time writings each on 80 and 100 with 97% accuracy on jury charge material, and pass 2 5-minute time writings each at 80 and 100 words a minute with 97% accuracy on lit material. So technology requirements, you have computer. Make sure that you have your computer, okay? You need to have one, and the requirements are you could have either a desktop or a laptop, and it has to connect to the internet so you can have access to Blackboard. It is highly recommended that Windows 10 be installed. That just makes it easier for your case catalyst, okay? If you do not own a computer, or if your computer malfunctions during the semester, you will be expected to identify a computer to use. Computers are available at the public library and at the various EPCC campuses. Technology problems are not an excuse for missed work or late work. So very important that you all remember that you need to get your computer working, okay? Blackboard, you will need to contact 915-831-6440 as soon as possible to receive a username and password for access to Blackboard. Please have your student ID number and let them know that you are an online student. Your username and password are required for access to Blackboard. All assignments, labs, and lectures will be accessed through Blackboard. Please be sure to Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox as your browsers. Use them here when connecting, okay? Google Chrome or Firefox. Make sure they're your browsers when you go into Blackboard, okay? And so 8316440 will give you your password, and that's going to be really helpful. So I've had students that in the past didn't do that. They used another browser and it kicks them out of Blackboard or does other weird things. So make sure that you do that. Very, very important. Okay, and then going on, sorry, I have a little issue. Here we go. We have stenographic machines. I'm sure all of you have stenographic machines, so if not, you can contact us. We do rent them out, but I know most of you in the class have the stenographic machines, okay? So that shouldn't be a problem. But if not, just read on it. Stenograph does have some brand new machines. We do rent them out to you, so just so you know that that is an option. Case Catalyst is the software that we use. It's here at the lab, free, but we know it's an online class, so you can purchase it. I also know that some of you have Eclipse. That's also possible to have that, so don't worry about it. We can use either one. The lab is going to be open from 9 to 5 p.m. Monday through Thursdays. On Fridays, we will be closed. If you need to contact the lab assistants, it's Michelle Valdez, 831-8860, 915 is the area code, or Kat Santiabanes and Monica Sosa at 915-831-8879. Okay? Please feel free to contact us, and if you need any information regarding the equipment. Case Catalyst software is also available for rental purposes, but we do keep them for the theory students, so it's first come, first served, and we do reserve them for them. Lab assistant information. Your lab assistant is going to be Kat Santiabanes. You can reach her at kblancha@epcc.edu, and she can be reached at 915-831-8879 or 915-831-8860. Text and materials. Textbook is optional for written knowledge tests. So you have the National Court Reporters Association, how to prepare for the RPR, RMR exams, and practice questions for the RPR, RMR exams sold as a package. 1998 version available at the EPCC bookstore. Court Reporter Reference Textbook, Workbook, and Study Guide by Monet Benoit and Emmett J. Donnelly. It's 4 books. These are really, if you're taking your written knowledge test, these are the books we recommend, and highly recommended. Remember, once you take your written knowledge test at the state test level, it's always there for life, so it's good forever, okay? So make sure that you know that. The Uniform Format Manual for Texas Court Reporters, 2010 edition, is under handouts, and that's just sample transcripts, how to put them together. So I recommend that you all get together and realize when you're going to take your written knowledge test. Most of the students don't do that until accelerated or merit. So, but it's always a good time to get it out of the way early. It's there for life. So make sure you have your stenograph machine, your software, a dictionary. We recommend the Merriam-Webster's. It's the 11th edition. Okay, this is it. It's a paperback book, and it's very inexpensive, and this is what they use to grade your tests at the state test level. Make sure you have a USB flash drive just to download some of our recordings from Blackboard, and you will need to register for your EV360 software. You need your username and password to access additional speed building. And remember, this is going to be mandatory to perform 5 hours a week of practice in EV360. So very, very important that you all go into the left tab of Blackboard, and then it should be on the left-hand side. I think it's the third one, EV360. There's a demo there. Watch it so you know how to get your information for your password and username. Course evaluations. You must pass 2 5-minute time writings at 80 and 100 with 97% accuracy on lit. You need to pass 2 5-minute time writings at 80 and 100 with 97% accuracy on jury charge. You need to pass 2 5-minute time writings at 100 and 120 with 97% accuracy on Q&A material. Grading scale, attendance will be verified by Blackboard, and class must be attended 80% of the time. So 12 absences is 80%. If you have 13, you're going to be dropped or be given an F. So make sure that you access everything in Blackboard. It gives a report of what days you accessed. In order to get an A, you need to pass all 12 recordings of your tests. There's 12 that you are required to pass, and you have to have 95% of homework notes and 95% of dailies turned in. For a B, it's 75% of required time writings, which is 9, plus 90% of homework notes and 90% of dailies turned in, or 50%, which is 6 pass tests, but you have to do a little bit more work, 95% of homework notes and 95% of dailies turned in. A C is 50% of required time writings, which is 6 passed, plus 85% of homework notes and 85% of dailies turned in, or 25% of your required time writings, which is only 3, but you have to do a little more work, which is 90% of homework notes and 90% of dailies, okay? Going on to page 5, a D is 1, 2, or no required time writings were passed, but you still have to have 80% of your homework notes turned in and dailies, okay? F is you didn't pass any required time writings and less than 80% of homework notes and less than 80% of dailies turned in. Note, all required time writings must be passed before the student will be allowed to enroll for CRTR 2401, or unless a grade of an I is given. Average grade 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, 70 to 79 is a C, 60 to 69 is a D, below 60 is an F. Homework notes and dailies. So notes from 15 practice hours are required per week. Refer to your practicum guidelines sheet under handouts as to how to complete your homework. 5 hours of homework is mandatory in EB 360. So make sure that you all get on there and get your password and username. Please send your homework and practicum guidelines sheet via email to your lab assistant, Kat Santiavanes, kblancha@epcc.edu. Okay? And carbon copy me, Lucretia Thomas, at lucretiat@epcc.edu when using computer-aided software. The homework is due every Monday. 15 extra lab hours and 3 dailies will be added to your homework totals at the end of the semester. So just so you know, every time at the end of a semester, you're going to have 15 extra lab hours and 3 dailies that I give you, okay? So if there's a week that you miss, just be assured that I'll give you that extra hours and dailies. The homework notes for this class for 15 hours of practice average anywhere from 300 to 450 pages a week that you'll send in to us, okay? This is just an approximation. Should there be any question regarding your homework hours, you should be able to demonstrate to the instructor how you arrived at your weekly total. No more than 20 hours will be accepted at any one time, especially at the end of the semester. The homework and or lab hours to be turned in shall be done according to the practicum guidelines. So in the handouts, go to practicum guidelines. You're going to turn that in every week with your homework. Every Monday, you're going to tell us what you practiced. Remember, there's some mandatory portions, theory, finger exercises, and then EV 360. Homework notes that are completed utilizing court reporting software must be emailed to Kat and carbon copied to me. If you are using Case Catalyst, the best way to send your notes via email is to open the Case Catalyst, and I give you directions on how to do it, okay? Going on. We have 3 transcriptions of time writings, dailies required per week. Tests must be typed in their entirety and may be typed at home if not to be graded. Dailies must be turned in weekly. So your dailies are supposed to be turned in by the 14th, October 12th, and November 9th, 3 per week. Remember, your dailies are opportunities for you to read your notes to see what you're messing up on. You edit them. You make entries into your dictionary, and then you send it to us. Don't send us untranslates. We want to see everything corrected. That's the point of having a daily, is to look and evaluate your notes and see what errors you have. Daily should be turned in utilizing computer-aided transcription, Case Catalyst, or any other software, CAT software, okay? I know some of you have Eclipse. Makeup exams, a student has 1 week to access Blackboard. Extra credit assignments may be done as per the instructor. A student may receive no more than 20 extra credit hours per semester. Blackboard recordings, please call 915-831-6440 to obtain your username and password for access to Blackboard. Tell them you are an online student. Attendance is verified through Blackboard. All activity is monitored in Blackboard. Any student who does not access Blackboard at least 80% of the time, which is you have 13 or more absences, will be dropped from the course or will be given an F. So very important that you all access it on a daily basis, okay? After 1 week has elapsed, you're not going to have access in Blackboard. So it's very strictly enforced. Any tests typed after this time period are not going to count. So you've got to stay within your 1 week period. If tests are typed at home and it's a pass, please email your notes to your lab assistant the next class session or the test will not count. We have to have your notes once they notify you that you passed. Some of the students just go ahead and send the notes, okay? So it's up to you. Instructors' policies, attendance, make sure you get your username and password for Blackboard, 831-6440. And live class is going to be from 12 to 12:50, Monday through Thursday. And if it is Mountain Standard Time, if you're interested in joining, I have the communication that you can join us via your phone or your computer. So it's on page 7. Going on to page 8. It is your responsibility to withdraw from class in accordance with community college's policies, procedures, and timelines. The instructor may drop any student who does not access Blackboard. The last date to withdraw with the W is Thursday, November 9. An I grade. The grade of an I is an incomplete and will be given solely at the instructor's discretion. Such factors as attendance, number of tests needed, homework completed, etc. will be given consideration. You are allowed 4 months to complete the time writings. Should you choose not to re-enroll for the same course the following semester, you will have to make arrangements with the instructor to take the time writing tests. Student conduct. Cheating will not be tolerated. Any student in violation of the Code of Student Conduct will be reported to the Vice President of Student Services. Persons who are caught could be subject to community college sanctions as well as being given an F on the assignment. Students' notes may randomly be audited on past tests. This is to ensure the integrity of online testing. So we may randomly just check your notes with what you typed up. So just so you know, okay, I do it randomly. Student responsibility. Misunderstanding or confusion should be communicated to the instructor. Students have the primary responsibility for asking for help in completing the course objectives and in seeking assistance when needed. Students are encouraged to keep their own records of dailies and lab hours turned in. So under handouts, there's a dailies and lab hours sheet. That's where you're going to keep track of what you turn in every week. Lab area conduct, that applies to students that come here and practice. I'm not going to cover that. G, to carry over past time writings from one semester to the next semester, the student must, so this is if you pass something this semester and you want to carry it next semester. We carry your test over. You have to come back the next semester and you have to turn in at least 80% of homework, notes, and daily, so you have to get at least a D. The calendar for this class is going to follow this schedule. Monday, jury charge speed building at 80 and 100. Tuesday, Q&A speed building at 100 and 120. Wednesday, lit speed building at 80 and 100, and time writings. Thursday, alternate between jury charge, Q&A, and literary speed building and time writings. And the last day to withdraw with the W is Thursday, November 9. Finals are December 4 and 5. Roll will be taken through Blackboard. 2 examinations of each speed will be given. This calendar is subject to change, so just so you know. And then I have on 7 certification exams, written knowledge exams. This is if you want to take your state written knowledge test, you contact JBCC or TCRA. And the next machine portion test is not even up there yet. They don't have a date, but this is all the information. Withdrawal. Beginning fall 2007, all freshmen enrolled for the first time at any Texas public college or university will be limited to 6 course drops during their entire academic career. Drops include those initiated by the student or by faculty and those incurred at other Texas institutions. This policy does not apply to courses dropped before Census Day or to complete withdrawals from the college. When you register, see your advisor, choose your courses carefully. Before you drop a course, see your advisor, discuss options with your professor, use campus resources such as tutoring labs, computer labs, etc. So what that means is, in Texas, if you're in a Texas college, if you have 6 drops, it's okay. But once you get a 7th, it becomes an F, and the 8th an F. So make sure that you realize that. I know that sometimes in court reporting it's a little tough and you have to drop to avoid getting a bad grade. So keep that in mind, okay? And then I'm going on to your official syllabus. And this is page 2 of your official syllabus, just so you all know. Under Roman numeral 4, Disability Statement, Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, EPCC offers a variety of services to persons with documented sensory, mental, physical, or temporary disabling conditions to promote success in classes. If you have a disability and believe you may need services, you are encouraged to contact the Center for Students with Disabilities to discuss your needs with a counselor. All discussions and documentation are kept confidential. The offices are located here at the Northwest Campus, room M54, and the number is 915-831-8815, in case you have any issues, okay? So what I'm going to do now is do a little bit of speed building. I think I have a little bit of time. And then get your machines, okay? And we'll get ready for that. Okay, so this is going to be, I'm going to do 110 for 5 minutes, okay, you all? A little bit of speed building. If you need more speed building, just go ahead and practice something else and then utilize the test. I just have 5 minutes of it, but remember, tomorrow we'll have a normal class, so you'll have much longer time, okay? This is at 110. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, certain evidence in this case was admitted for the limited purpose of showing whether or not the defendant had a plan, scheme, or design to produce a result of which the act charged in the information was a part. And you should consider it as evidence for no other purpose. At the time the evidence was admitted, you were admonished that it could not be considered by you for any purpose other than the limited purpose for which it was admitted. You are again instructed that you must not consider such evidence for any purpose except the limited purpose for which it was admitted. For that limited purpose, you may give it such weight as you think it is entitled to. The defendant cannot be tried or convicted of any act not charged in the information itself, since any determination of the defendant's guilt or innocence on such an act is the subject of a separate trial. Because of the intrinsic dangers in admitting the testimony of another alleged act not charged in the case before you, you have been cautioned to carefully scrutinize and weigh any evidence of another alleged act and to strictly adhere to the limited purpose for which said evidence was to be considered. Any testimony regarding an alleged act of the defendant, other than the act for which he is charged, in this case may not only be considered by you for the limited purpose of showing plan, scheme, design, or identity, and you cannot consider this evidence for any other purpose. The weight to be attributed to any such evidence is solely within the discretion of the jury. The defendant cannot be tried for or convicted by this jury of any alleged act not charged in this case, since that issue must be decided by a separate jury. You are instructed that the issue of identity may, in certain limited situations, be shown by another act, but care should be taken in comparing that act to the alleged offense charged in the information. And no weight should be given to the other alleged act unless it is so similar to the act charged that you find it to be a device so unusual and distinctive as to be like a signature, so nearly identical in method as to earmark the acts as being perpetrated by the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt. The in-court identification of the defendant by Wanda Timms is not to be considered as proof of the defendant's identity in this case unless you find that each act was so perpetrated by the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt from evidence other than Wanda Timms's in-court identification. Disconnected, independent acts cannot be considered by you for any purpose. In considering the testimony of Wanda Timms regarding the alleged act of July 16, 1987 at the Broadway Donut Shop, it is not proper for you to conclude that there was a common plan, scheme, design, or identity of the perpetrator with respect. Okay, and so I know that's not much speed building. We'll have more tomorrow. Let's go ahead and get ready for your tests, okay? Okay, so this is going to be your test number 1, 100 jury charge, proper names. You have count 1, count 2, and 4. Okay, this is going to be 100 number 1 for 5 minutes. Test. Starts in the middle. Evidence consists of the testimony of witnesses, writings, material objects, or anything else presented to the senses and offered to prove the existence or non-existence of a fact. Evidence is either direct or circumstantial. Direct evidence is that evidence that directly proves a fact without the necessity of an inference, and which by itself, if found to be true, establishes the facts. Circumstantial evidence is evidence that, if found to be true, proves a fact from which the inference of the existence of another fact may be drawn. An inference is a deduction of facts that may logically and reasonably be drawn from another fact or set of facts established by the evidence. It is not necessary that facts be proved by direct evidence. They may be proved also by circumstantial evidence or by a combination of direct and circumstantial evidence. Both direct evidence and circumstantial evidence are acceptable as a means of proof. Neither is entitled to any greater weight than that given to the other. However, a finding of guilty as to any crime may not be based on circumstantial evidence unless the proven circumstances are not only consistent with the theory that the defendant is guilty of the crime, but that it cannot be reconciled with any other rational conclusion. And now further, each fact which is essential to complete a set of circumstances necessary to establish the defendant's guilt must be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. In other words, before an inference that is essential to establish guilt may be found to have been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, each fact or circumstance upon which such inference necessarily rests must be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. In addition, if the circumstantial evidence as to any particular count is susceptible of two reasonable interpretations, and one of which points to the defendant's guilt and the other points to his innocence, it is your duty to adopt the interpretation that points to the defendant's innocence and to reject the interpretation that points to his guilt. If, on the other hand, one interpretation of such evidence appears to you to be reasonable and the other interpretation appears to be unreasonable, it would be your duty to accept the reasonable interpretation and to reject the unreasonable interpretation. The specific intent with which any act is done may be shown by the circumstances surrounding the commission of the act. But you may also find or not find the defendant guilty of the offense charged in count 1, 2, and 4, unless the proved circumstances not only are consistent with the theory that he had the required specific intent, but cannot be reconciled with any other rational conclusion. Additionally, if the evidence as to any such specific intent is susceptible of two reasonable interpretations, one of which points to the existence of the specific intent and the other to the absence of the specific intent, it is your duty to adopt that interpretation which points to the absence of the specific intent. Okay, and then we have your second test. And so we have proper names. You have Federal Civil Rights Act. And that's it, Federal Civil Rights Act. And let me give you civil rights is SLRTS. Initial SR or SL and then final RTS, okay? This is 100, number 2 for 5 minutes. In this case, the plaintiff is making a claim under the Federal Civil Rights Act that prohibits an employer from discriminating against an employee in the terms and conditions of their employment due to their race. In this case, the plaintiff claims that he was denied a promotion by the defendant because of his race. The defendant denies that the plaintiff was discriminated against in any manner and states that the fact that the plaintiff was not promoted had nothing to do with his race, and in fact had to do with his work performance. In order to prevail on his claim, the plaintiff must prove that he was denied a promotion by the defendant and that his race was the main factor that prompted the defendant to not promote him. In the verdict form that I will explain to you in a moment, you will be asked to answer a series of questions about each of those two issues. Members of the jury, you should be aware that the law that can be applied to a case like this only requires that the employer not discriminate due to the race of an employee. So far as you are concerned in this case, an employer can fail to promote an employee for any other reason, both good and bad, both fair and unfair. And you must not try to second guess that decision on the part of the employer. You also must not permit any sympathy for the plaintiff to lead you away from your own solid judgment for that of the defendant, even though you might not agree with the action taken and would have not acted as the employer did under the circumstances. The law does not require an employer to give any special treatment to an employee because of their race. On the other hand, the plaintiff does not have to prove that his race was the sole reason for the defendant's decision to not promote him. If the plaintiff proves that his race was what made the difference in the defendant's decision to not promote him, then that is enough to prove his claim. If you find in plaintiff's favor with respect to each of the facts that the plaintiff must prove, you will be asked to decide whether the defendant has shown by a preponderance of the evidence that the plaintiff would not have been promoted for other reasons aside from the race of the plaintiff. If you find that the plaintiff would not have been promoted for reasons other than his race, then your verdict will be in favor of the defendant in this case. If you find for the plaintiff and against the defendant on its defense, the next step is to decide the issue of the plaintiff's damages. You are instructed that you are to assess the amount of money you find to be owed to the plaintiff by a preponderance of the evidence as a reasonable amount of money. And now we'll go on to your 80s. 80 number 1. You have proper names. Sorry, just changing the date here. Okay, and on your 80 number 1, proper names, you have none. So this is 80 jury charge test number 1 for 5 minutes. It starts in the middle. Discrepancies in a witness's testimony or between his testimony and that of others, if there were any other witnesses, should be discredited. Failure of recollection is a common experience, and innocent misrecollection is not uncommon in life. It is a fact of life that if two persons witness an incident or a transaction, one will often see or hear it differently than the other. This is because every person's sense of perception is different. Whether a discrepancy pertains to a fact of importance or only to a trivial detail should be considered in weighing its total significance. You are not bound to decide in conformity with the testimony of a number of witnesses, which does not produce a conviction in your own minds as against the testimony of a lesser number of other evidence, which appeals to your mind with a more convincing force. This does not mean that you are at liberty to disregard the testimony of the greater number of witnesses merely from caprice or prejudice, or from a desire to favor one side as against the other. It does mean that you are not to decide an issue by the simple process of counting the number of witnesses who have testified on the opposing sides. It means that the final test is not in the relative or total number of witnesses, but in the relative and convincing force of the evidence. Evidence has been received which tends to show the obvious character of the defendant for traits ordinarily involved in the commission of a crime, such as that charged in this case. Good character for the traits involved in the commission of the crimes charged may be sufficient by itself to raise a reasonable doubt as to the guilt of the defendant. It may be reasoned that a person of good character as to such traits would not be likely to commit the crimes of which the defendant is charged. However, evidence of good character for such traits may be refuted or rebutted by evidence of bad character for these traits. Any conflict in the evidence of a defendant's character and the weight to be given to such evidence is for the jury to determine. In this case, defendant has testified to certain matters. If you find that he failed to explain or deny any evidence against him introduced by the prosecution, which he can reasonably be, and then you have your number 280 jury charge. Proper names, I don't believe there are any, okay? So no proper names. This is going to be your number 2 jury charge test for 5 minutes, you all. Good luck. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the clerk is going to hand out a guide on deliberations for you to take back to the jury room with you. You may find it helpful to read the guide before you start your deliberations. It was designed by my staff and I to be an easy to read handout. I found over the years that jurors often don't know where to begin when they enter the jury room, and the instructions I will read you that relate to this next step don't seem to address all the questions a jury has. I hope you take the time to read it and acquaint yourselves with what is expected of you before you begin. It is important that each of you hear what the others have to say in your deliberations. If someone is in the restroom, you have to pause in your discussion about the case until everyone is around the table again. During the deliberations, you are not to go out on breaks by yourself. If you need a break, you will have to notify the bailiff or courtroom attendant, and she will ask me if it's all right. During your deliberations, the bailiff or courtroom attendant will go with anyone who needs to leave the jury room. It is part of her job to accompany you and to ensure that no one tries to talk to you about the case. The bailiff will also be collecting all of your phones and will keep them while you deliberate. They should be shut off before you give them to her for safekeeping. They will, of course, be returned to you at the end of the trial or at the end of the day. If we recess before you have reached a verdict. If you should have a question for me, your presiding juror should put it in writing and signal the bailiff. She will bring the question to me, and I will show it to the lawyers and give you a response. The response might be that it isn't possible for me to answer your question, but I will let you know one way or the other. Please be aware that this process can take some time. When you are together in the jury room, each of you are to listen openly to one another before passing judgment. I like to say that Okay, so that concludes your test. You all type one up. They're very good. See how you're doing. Remember to edit your dailies if it's not to be turned in for a grade. Welcome back. Have a great semester, and let me know if you have any questions, okay? Have a great day, you all.